Keynotes is what we're going to talk about here, and Keynotes under our annotation tab over here is an automated process of labeling and tagging the information. And the first thing I should point out, when you're using Keynotes, you need to kind of sit down and put some thought into it. You can't just kind of dive into adding Keynotes without having done some setup. There's a little bit of setup that has to happen because there's a Keynote file that's being used in the background that has all the information. Some objects already know their Keynote, and what you do literally is you link objects in Revit to a Keynote file, an external database file. If I go up to tagging and I go here, Keynote settings, okay, it tells me this is the location and this is the file. It's a TXT file, comma delimited. You can open it in Excel or Access and you can modify it. You can create your own corporate Keynote file that has all of your specs and all your information that you plan on using, and you can have more than one. Each project has the opportunity to put in this Keynote file and browse to it. Okay, so we have our Keynote information, how the pathing works, and the numbering system. When you go to schedule it, do you want to do schedule by Keynote or do you want to do it by sheet to sheet basis? Okay, and I should point out, if you go to CAD clips, do a search on Keynote, we have lots more CAD clips on this. A little bit outdated, but still the philosophy and the process is exactly the same. So have a look at that. So having said that, that is the file, okay, that is being used. And you can go open up that file and look at it, and you can edit it and copy it and use that. So it's an external file. It's the first thing we've been talking about as far as linking data here goes. So that works with our Keynote. So if you go in here and you say element Keynote, if you add a Keynote, okay, when you go to place your Keynote, there's different tag types that read different information. Okay, if you click on here, we have different Keynote tags. We have just the number itself. We have the Keynote numbered with a large box and a small box, and then we have the Keynote text. So Keynotes have a number and a piece of information. That's really the two pieces of information a Keynote is aware of. I'm going to escape out of that. If I pick on this 2x6, detail items are pre-built linked to a Keynote. So if I pick on this detail item and I go into edit type, you'll see there's a Keynote. I didn't add this. It came in with this Keynote, and that's the number. If you pick on here and you go into the little button on the right, you'll see that inside of here, my Keynote file, which it tells you where it is, under Division 6, Wood and Plastics, working your way down, wood framing, etc. There it is. It's a 2x6. Okay? So it could be called a 061100.f1. This is the number. This is the text. When we tag it with a Keynote, we can pull in either one of these pieces of information. There is an exercise of linking all your objects to the Keynotes. Not everything is linked to the Keynote file, okay, and or the same Keynote file. So you have to just kind of be aware of that. So now I notice I have my 1x14 in here. When I created that 1x14, I duplicated the 1x12. And if I remember correctly, if I go into here, if I go to the Keynote, when I duplicated that 1x12 to create my 1x14, I don't think I changed the Keynote. So if I go inside of here and I look, I'll see that there actually isn't even a 1x14 Keynote. So I would have to go in and edit that file and add in a 1x14 in there and then reload that into this project. Okay, I could edit that file. It's a TXT file. Simply insert a new line in there and call it 061100B14 1x14. I think we'll do that in our next lesson, not right away. So just be aware that items have type properties linking them to a Keynote file. So now it makes it very easy if you've done your setup and you've done all your linking of Keynotes and objects. Now I can go in and say Keynote. Do I want the number? Sure, the number is good. I can pick on here and place it. There's my Keynote. It's that easy. Okay. Now I want to do a Keynote. I want the text instead. I can Keynote the exact same object. just hover over here. I might have to use my tab button. Oh, it's not interesting. It's only letting me do it the one time. Pick on here, it's telling me that's a 2x6. Pick on here, tells me that's a 2x6. What happens if I just pick this wall? Pick, it's going to give me a question mark, and it's also going to prompt me to go pick a keynote. So inside of here, I'd have to go down and go to my keynotes and find one. Now I don't have a keynote for this particular wall system, so I could either tag that with just a wall tag instead and go to a wall schedule, which would be the wiser way. I'm just going to hit cancel on this. So in order to keynote this wall, I need to go to the wall, go to the edit type, and I need to go in here where it says keynote, and I need to pick on the end, and I need to go get a keynote for that. If I don't have one, I need to go out and add a keynote in here to make it available in this file. Make sense? The other option is, of course, to just add text, and we'll talk about that when we get to our text. So in the meantime, I can click on this, and I can kind of move this around a little bit, and you can take these and stretch them and try to make that look the way you want. The text behavior can be a little bit tricky with keynotes, I have to say that much. And there is I believe some properties in here. Box size this can also affect it. I believe if we make this a bit smaller. So notice it says for this text keynote it is text. If I change it to say number, it'll change to be number, and if I hit apply, hit OK, then it'll just plug that number in. Okay, if you don't like the arrowhead, you can click on here, go to the type, and say, okay, I want, the 15-degree arrowhead. Hit apply, hit OK. So there is a quick example. Now what happens if I go and, keynote this insulation? Let's go annotate, keynote by element, pick on this insulation. Am I seeing it? Tab, tab, tab. Not finding it. Let's go back here again. Home. Annotate. Keynote. Now, I think we have to go probably by material for this one. Keynote by material. Still not grabbing it. Escape, escape. Keynote by element. It's getting my ceilings, etc. What's this? Doesn't like the keynoting of insulation. Strange. Let's see if insulation gets a keynote. It doesn't. That's all there is to it. You cannot keynote insulation. Okay. If it doesn't have the option, if you pick on something and you go into here and it doesn't have the keynote option, then it can't be keynoted. That's basically it. So, or you can go in here and you can create custom keynote tags. You can actually write a piece of text in here and it'll pick it up. But you have to be careful because you have to go in and change your tag type a little bit. That's getting a little bit more advanced inside of there. So if you have your objects tied to keynotes and you add with the keynote object here tied to this file, then you'll get your information. Once it's in there, you can adjust the way the keynote looks and whether you want to see a number or whether you want to see text, etc. inside of there. And the reason why this is creating such a big box is because it's prepared to have a great big piece of text. And keynotes are funny that way, that I've had to go in and edit all of my tags a little bit. These are the out-of-the-box tags. They don't quite, because it's wrapping and it's creating this kind of virtual box around here, you're going to have a hard time trying to get that text to fit properly. So you have to almost change the justification of this. So that means you need to go in there and edit that family. So most of the keynote families I have gone in and edited, but it does make things go fairly quickly once they're all set up. And if you go to our CAD Clips webpage here under Revit CAD Clips and you do our search over here, if you do a search in here for Keynote and search in there, you can see that we do have some lessons in here. They are a little bit outdated, albeit, but the information is still very pertinent. So we've got some great lessons in there. So if you go back to our Revit CAD Clips and you scroll down, for instance, to here, you'll see we have a series on keynotes. And then if you go through that, this is again a little bit older, but you know the interface has changed a little bit. But for the most part, we provide here the data, the file, the content file, the Keynote file, and all that information. So some really good lessons here on doing keynotes in your Revit projects.